Good afternoon and welcome to the Plan4Health Landscape Performance Series webinar. I'm Elizabeth Hardig with the American Planning Association, and we're so excited to have you here this afternoon. We are recording the webinar and it will be available on the Plan4Health website. There's a link to the website just in our chat box there. We have a couple of other links of interest that might be helpful too. You're welcome to check out the Landscape Architecture Foundation website and of course the Landscape Performance Series tool itself. If you have questions throughout the program, please feel free to chat them, and we'll try to get to them during the discussion time. If not, you're always welcome to email me at ehartig@planning.org. All right, well, we have an action-packed 30 minutes for you, so we're going to dive in. And I'm joined today by Ariana Kadunis. Ariana has a dynamic background in stakeholder engagement and placemaking, covering topics ranging from sustainable development to public health, aging in place, and arts and culture. As a program manager with the Landscape Architecture Foundation, Ariana oversees LIF's Case Study Investigation Initiative and leads efforts to build and promote the Landscape Performance Series, which of course is why she's here today. So I will turn things over to you, Ariana.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good afternoon or morning, everyone, depending on where you're calling in from. I'm the program manager here at, well, not here, but at the Landscape Architecture Foundation. We are a national nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C., and were founded 50 years ago by some of the leading landscape architects of the day with the mission to preserve, protect, and enhance the environment. We work to increase our collective capacity to achieve sustainability, and we do so by investing in research, scholarships, and leadership. Our primary research focus for the last 6 years has been on landscape performance, on looking at the measurable environmental, social, and economic benefits of landscape solutions, which include public parks, stream restorations, schoolyards, streetscapes, and several other typologies. We officially define landscape performance as a measure of the effectiveness with which landscape solutions fulfill their intended purpose and contribute to sustainability. Now, the challenge with that definition is that there is no one definition of sustainability. It has been defined as the triple bottom line, or quadruple if you factor in the aesthetic. The living building challenge divides it into 6 petals. Bioregional very practically defines sustainability as one planet's worth of resources, as you can see on the right. But these all serve to illustrate that no matter how sustainability is defined, zero carbon, net zero water, biodiversity, quality of life, these cannot be achieved without considering landscape. However, landscape is frequently undervalued in our design and development processes. It is seen as something ornamental that you can throw on at the end or something that you can value engineer out without really affecting the final product. And yet, there is a growing body of evidence showing that landscapes are an essential part of vibrant, healthy, livable communities. And we want everyone to understand that. This here is the National Association of Realtors building, the first LEED certified building in Washington, D.C. If you Google it, you can easily find a range of quantified outcomes that the building is performing, or as we would call benefits. So you can see those listed here on the right, and these are quantifying the result, the processes that are occurring on the site through this building's design. Now, for a basis of comparison, let's look at a streetscape project. Typically, when you search for landscape-related projects, you tend to find a list of features rather than benefits, as indicated here. Or you'll see a list of functions or claims which tell you what processes or benefits are taking place, but without assigning a value to those benefits, i.e. how much stormwater runoff is captured and cleaned, how many pounds of carbon are sequestered, in what way is social value of the space increased. The ideal and one of the drivers of our work with landscape performance is to move how these projects are typically identified from features to claims to quantified benefits, the latter of which you see listed here. Which brings us to our award-winning Landscape Performance Series, which is an online resource and set of initiatives to help designers, agencies, and advocates evaluate performance, show value, and make the case for sustainable landscape solutions. The Landscape Performance Series website, landscapeperformance.org, has 4 main components: case study briefs, fast fact library, benefits toolkit, and collections. and I'm going to show you each of those in more detail. But first, I want to take a minute to position what the Landscape Performance Series is and what it is not. So as you can see here, it is a collection of resources. It is designed to make landscape performance as well known as building performance. It focuses on built performing projects. It's a resource that continues to grow over time with each round of research we invest in, and it generates demand for sustainable landscape solutions, and I'll get more into that last piece later. But something it is not is a rating system. So I also, many of you have probably heard of the Sustainable Sites Initiative, also known as SITES, which is a LEED-like rating system for landscapes. So as you can see here, the two complement one another, but there are distinctions. So the Landscape Performance Series isn't a rating system. It focuses on the post-occupancy measurable performance of built landscapes, whereas SITES is prescriptive in what should be measured and what the numerical goals and benchmarks should be over time. So the work that SITES has done has definitely helped to inform and strengthen the case that we make with the Landscape Performance Series, and many of the projects in our Landscape Performance Series are SITES projects. I also want to mention our target audience for the Landscape Performance Series, all of whom are listening in here as well. During these first years, we spent a lot of time conducting outreach to landscape architects, but the spectrum of target audiences includes all those who are involved in design and development decision-making, including planners, developers, municipal agencies, and advocates. So here's the landscapeperformance.org homepage. You can see the four main components at the top with a link that takes you to an interface where you can easily browse and search them. We've also compiled the content by popular topics to make it easy to jump right in. Most of what I'm going to show you next can be accessed by clicking the health and well-being or active living links that you'll see amidst the images in the middle. I want to reiterate that the research in the Landscape Performance Series covers a wide range of environmental, social, and economic benefits. Things like flood protection, air quality, educational value, job creation, safety, and many of these are very much related to health. But what I'm going to showcase from here on out are the two Plan4Health focus areas, physical activity and access to healthy foods. So we will start with our Fast Facts library, an example which you see here. It is a collection of landscape benefits derived from published research. Each includes a citation and links to the full article when available. Many of the Fast Facts show the impact of parks, like this one on access to parkland, or they may show the impact of particular aspects of parks, like this one relating to trails, or this one about the impact of park renovations. I'll give you a second to read them. Or this one about the benefits of providing opportunities for risky outdoor play. So many of these are used as advocacy tools to animate and often longitudinal research, the value add of landscape and various components. This one shows the connection between the value of well-designed spaces and the opportunity those spaces create for more increased physical activity. This one in particular in the context of livability. Here on a similar note with walking and cycling, and that was in a review of 30 published health impact assessments. Here we see the connection that features, in particular, the presence of street trees and the mixed-use layout of the neighborhood were the primary factors that correlated with more children walking and biking to school. Also on the note of the connection between landscape-related design elements and physical activity, here in New South Wales, we see that greenery and good street lighting correlated with increased walking, as well as perceived improvement in safety and access to metrics very much tied to health and wellness. This longitudinal multi-city study in California suggests that increased street connectivity and road diets are correlated with reduced rates of diseases linked to physical activity, including obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. An international study with a large sample size. Oh, I think we somehow have gone back to the beginning, so just one moment. Just going to do a quick review here. Okay, so an international study with a large sample size found that improved access to green space and recreational areas reduced neighborhood socioeconomic health inequalities, while a range of other services provided had no effect. It's very interesting when you think of the socioeconomic work I mentioned. Many of you are doing this study, which looked at the range of financial services, transportation, other facilities, but in terms of having a kind of demonstrated improvement, it was really anchored in the landscape access to green space. This Philadelphia study, on a related note, demonstrates the relationship between the greening of previously vacant lots and residents reporting less stress, as well as having the opportunity to engage in an increase in exercise. Here we see the relationship between living in green areas and improved mental health, a 5-year-long longitudinal study coming out of Great Britain. And also that in a city, children with ADHD concentrate better after walking in a park rather than in other urban settings. Some of you may be familiar with this high-profile study by Roger Ulrich, which shows that recovering patients with views of trees recovered faster and with less complications or had a less negative experience than patients with views of a brick wall. So you can see how these could be useful to advocate for more parks or choose features to promote physical activity, and I hope that you make use of these resources and that they serve you all well in the future. Next, we will look at the Benefits Toolkit, a range of online calculators and tools to estimate landscape performance. And there are dozens of them, but for the purposes of today, we'll just touch on 3. The Green Roof Energy Calculator was developed by Green Roofs for Healthy Cities, and it compares energy performance of green roofs to both dark roofs and white roofs. And this includes electric, gas, and energy cost savings, heat exchange, and roof water balance. The National Tree Benefit Calculator, developed by Casey Trees, calculates stormwater, energy, carbon, air quality, and property values resulting from the number and size of trees in their particular zip code and adjacent land use. It also accounts for the climate zone that the site is located in. And also the Vegetable Garden Calculator, developed by Plan4Health, uses produce type and planted area to determine how many pounds of grown food and their respective market value. Price per pound is adjusted for a grocery store versus a farmer's market versus organic produce. We will now look at the case studies. First at the components of the case study, followed by several examples of projects we have featured in the Landscape Performance series. This is Renaissance Park, and you see the before and after image. So we have this more industrial site and afterwards the park that it was created into. We have the landscape performance benefits, which are broken off into environmental, social, and economic chunks. And the main criteria here is that these are all quantified benefits. And when possible, we're also providing an equivalency. So if it has, X pounds of carbon, an equivalency of what that would translate to in terms of how many miles you would be driving in a car and things to that effect. At the bottom right, it might be a little hard to see here, but the yellow text is where on the website you would click on that, and that would pull up a PDF document of the research methods that were utilized to arrive at all of these benefits. And I'll get more into the process that creates the pipeline for this content, but that's through our case study investigation program So the academic research team that's done this research, they are the ones who published the case study and have done the research methods available as well. And so now this is a glance at one of the research methods. And within the methods document, each benefit must then have context for the methodology that was undertaken, calculations, limitations, and any sources from that material, as well as any graphic information to supplement the benefit. So here we have cut and fill calculations for the flood plan. Here you have at-a-glance information, so that's giving all of the key information about the typology, the location, the size, what the site was before, I don't know if I said budget, when it was completed. And we also have tabbed content. So this first tab here is the overview, and that gives context for the site. It calls out any key benefits and any key features on the site. The next tab over is sustainable features. The list goes a lot longer than this. The snapshot cuts off, so it's an exhaustive list of all of the features on the site, describing all of the systems and processes. And while it's called sustainable features, it actually also includes anything about wayfinding, interesting shade structures, all of the kind of major features, art installations, anything that you find on the site, so the user can really get a sense of the project. The challenge and solution is a challenge faced by the design team and the solution that they found to overcome that challenge through a design-based solution. The cost comparison is comparing a more traditional design solution to a more sustainable, so each of these projects being the more sustainable alternative, but focusing in on one aspect that was made, one decision that was made, and the cost implications of that, whether it was a savings or not, or if there were life cycle savings that eventually compensate for the increased overhead to begin with. So an example might be looking at a green roof or looking at permeable pavers versus asphalt and so on. Lessons learned are a whole range of things, from unanticipated consequences of all sorts to user behavior to maintenance to monitoring findings. Really always an interesting range of information here that can really be useful, not just from a designer but also a client or kind of stakeholder perspective. Products are just a list of the key products on the site, so that those who are looking to emulate or replicate some aspects of the project know where to go to find that information. And the project team, it's cut off here, but it starts with the full project team that created the site, and then it ends with the list of researchers who worked on the project, including the firm liaison, the firm contact when this case study was created. These are our additional images, which always include site plans, sometimes site context. This one does because Renaissance Park was the final stage in a waterfront redevelopment, so we provide that full context. And usually more images than are provided here, usually a few of key sustainable features, a few of users experiencing the site, and others. And then references and resources below that are hyperlinked to articles and award recognitions and those sort of things to give a more holistic sense of the project. So now we'll go into some case study examples. This first is Renaissance Park, which you looked at for the example just now, the format of the case study. So the story with Renaissance Park, as I mentioned, it was part of a greater waterfront redevelopment strategy, and these three benefits that we call out here are the main ones: the removal of contaminated soil, an increase in healthy lifestyle overall and outdoor activity as per survey results that were collected by the research team, and it also influenced housing choice. So this is really calling out the connection with where people want to live and the value of these open spaces. The Atlanta Beltline East Side Trail. This was a coordinated multi-phase revitalization effort that was anchored around this project, which continues to be built, but we studied the East Side Trail, the first phase of this. These benefits highlight high traffic both during the week, and it really peaks on the weekend. the promotion of physical activity, with over 70% of people surveyed saying they actually get more exercise since the trail has opened, as well as catalytic economic development. So as you can see, the Landscape Performance Series is really great at highlighting these quantified co-benefits. Buffalo Bayou is really a story of placemaking, as well as seeing these environmental benefits, flood storage capacity, have visitors coming for recreational purposes, and increases in outdoor activity for cycling, jogging, and walking, all very health related. Dutch Kills Green is the story about streetscapes, a tremendous bike pedestrian safety improvement, the increase in bike traffic, but also very substantially reducing bike pedestrian fatalities from a high of 18 to now less than an average of 1 per year. Very huge. As well as increased property values. Gary Comer Youth Center. This is a learning as well as edible landscape. It produces food to feed children at the youth center. There are gardening learning programs and energy cost savings for the building as well. The Willow School, there's a strong link between the building and the landscape with this project. We see that with the water treatment benefit, the compost from the school's organic waste feeding vegetable garden, as well as the learning landscape feeds directly into the curriculum. And finally, we'll look at the collections, which are curated content from leaders in the built environment. Here we see Stephen Peck from Green Roofs for Healthy Cities. And no surprise, some of the projects he highlights are green roof projects. It's cut off there, but it was a list of calculators as well as projects and fast facts that all relate back to green roofs. And now a little bit about, I guess I didn't really mention what collections are. They're curated content by leaders in the built environment profession, so kind of a playlist of different content, and it can be something useful to help you kind of navigate how best to use the Landscape Performance Series, or without exhaustively searching through the whole thing, you can see snapshots of different collections. A little bit about understanding our browse and search functionality. If you have not been to landscapeperformance.org yet, here are the ways that you can filter it. So you can search by the landscape performance benefits. Within the environmental, social, and economic buckets we have, you can search by those specific metrics within them. You can search by features such as a green roof or a trail or a shade structure and that sort of thing, as well as by a tag. So how we kicked off the webinar, I highlighted the tags that might be useful. You can also do an open search. You can filter the other components, all of those components I highlighted before about the projects, the size, the location, so on, and also the Fast Facts and Benefits Toolkit have search functionality by the author or their respective source. So just in summary, what the Landscape Performance Series is and what we have available. We have a watch list, a blog. We have an upcoming guide to evaluate performance you should keep an eye out for, and training materials for those who are teaching components of landscape performance. So now what's next with the Landscape Performance Series, or at least as it relates to you all listening in? I'm going to tell you a bit about our case study investigation program, which is the pipeline that leads into the Landscape Performance Series, and that is a program that I manage. So I've got my contact information at the end here if you're interested in learning more or potentially applying and participating in CSI 2017. But it is a unique research collaboration between professors of landscape architecture, their graduate research assistants, and landscape architecture firms. So the way it works is both firms who have projects that are highly sustainable, high design, they will submit a project that has been completed for at least 1 year, and then an academic professor will submit an application to study projects as well, and we will match up the strongest candidates. And every year we have a cohort. So this year we will be producing 15 case studies, and we often will produce even more than that in a given year. And we are increasingly folding in the other members of the design team. So if you were the client or the planner or had another role in a project, we would really be interested in hearing from you if you have something in mind and working with the landscape architect on your project to submit an application. And these really, I guess, the selling points of participating in CSI, but here are some of the key lessons. basically across the board, when we look at our survey results, everyone says, they'll never approach design the same way again. The way that you really internalize the necessity and value in collecting baseline data and how that gives you a case for highlighting the performance when you have something to compare it to when you complete the project is really highly valuable. And just a little bit about our long-term partnerships. We currently have these partnerships going on with the U.S. General Service Administration. We first studied the U.S. Coast Guard headquarters campus here in Washington, D.C. That was a year-long study collaboration with the University of Maryland, and it's not listed here, but we now have an 18-month contract where we're studying 2 additional GSA sites. And with these, we use a lot of sophisticated stormwater and other monitoring, so it gives us more capacity than the 6-month CSI program has. With the TKF Foundation, that was a study of the Landscapes of Resilience project in Joplin, Missouri. We worked with Kansas State University to evaluate that project, which has had a lot of investment from TKF from a social science perspective. And now the 11th Street Bridge Park. This is a project here in D.C. That's a park that will connect over the Anacostia River, the Anacostia neighborhood and neighborhood of Capitol Hill. So we're helping to inform the pre-construction design through looking at the environmental baseline data. And when that project is complete, we'll also be doing a post-occupancy landscape performance evaluation. Our guidebook to evaluate performance, I've mentioned this a little bit, but here's the contact that will be included there. So be sure to keep an eye out of that, and we'll be notifying APA when this is published, so you'll all be aware. And now looking at opportunity areas, things that we've been thinking about at LAS. We absolutely want to add and develop more and deeper content related to health. We've done a pretty good job of combing the literature for physical activity and mental health benefits, but we know there's a lot of room for growth in, for example, the area of urban agriculture and nutrition. We'd like to target more of our case studies to look at projects with clear health objectives. The pursuit of longer-term partnerships and funding will be key if we want to evaluate projects for their impact on health, since changes in attitudes and patterns really do take time. We also want to look beyond individual projects and do analysis across case studies, synthesis of research across projects. We'll let us assess commonalities to better understand how individual design elements and other variables impact performance and behaviors. There are a lot of other things that we have on our mind, but for the sake of time, I think I'll be closing up here. But really, finally, the biggest opportunity area is to keep moving along the spectrum towards more measurement of health outcomes rather than just indicators. So circling back to the slide where I started off with the realtors building and then said we want to go from features to claims to benefits, thinking of it in health terms. We want to go from saying a site is walkable to users on the site are walking to that walking is improving health. So the context in which you might all relate this back to landscape and the work that you're doing. Thank you all for your contributions. And in summary, the Landscape Performance Series can be used for the following, and now I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Ariana. That was a fabulous, action-packed presentation. The images were wonderful, and I really think you're getting at the heart of what we are thinking about at Plan4Health. How do we talk about this impact? How do we quantify the work that we know you all are doing at the local level? So I know we just have a couple of moments, but please feel free to chat in your questions, and Ariana will be on the line for a couple minutes after 12:30 if you do would like to stay around and continue the discussion. I think just from our end, it was helpful to understand really the pipeline for creating the performance series and to know that you're continuing to build case studies and really connect with academics and researchers as well as community members. And I think that's something that's been weighing on our minds at Plan4Health. We've got a lot of community level stakeholders who are really engaged, and then how do we kind of make sure information is getting up to the academic world and then back down. So that was really helpful to see and exciting to see.
Great. Oh, and also I'll advance the slide, hopefully you all are seeing it, which has my email address there, acadunas@lafoundation.org, if you're interested in CSI or picking my brain about anything else related to health and landscape and metrics, please feel free to do so.
Wonderful, thank you. So we will post a recording of the webinar on the Plan4Health website. And if you're always welcome to email me as well for a copy of the slides, and I'll go ahead and type my email address into the chat box too. And we are just hitting the 12:30 mark. So if anyone has a last question, feel free to submit it.
Oh, and I see there is a comment about someone who would like more information on arid region projects. And something I should mention is that we do have search functionality based on climate zone, and we do have several studies in Arizona in particular and also Southern California. So yeah, please be aware that that's another option for searching, if not by state, but rather climate specific. You can do that as well.
Oh, that's great. That's good to know. Thank you for asking, David.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. Well, I will officially close the webinar, but we will stay on the line if you have any other questions. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And thank you, Ariana. This was a fabulous presentation.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.